Hello and welcome to another edition of Toys from the Attic. Now some others out there do G.I. Joe reviews, and I just wanted to let you know that my show is better. Why? Because my Joes are bigger. Now as you know, bigger is always better.
G.I. Joe, fighting man from head to toe, on the land, on the sea, in the air.
Back in the 1960s, Hasbro decided to release a series of military-based figures consisting of soldiers/marines, sailors, and pilots. Each one of these line of figures had their own individual names before it was decided to adopt the more universal term G.I. Joe, which stands for government issue and has become a generic term for U.S. soldiers. However, the term dates back to World War I when most of the equipment issued to U.S. soldiers was stamped with GI, referring to it being made out of galvanized metal. Stopping and thinking about it, it just reinforces the idea of how tough these guys are supposed to be. Up to this point, the style of military-based toys mainly consisted of the statically posed green army men. That all changed with the arrival of G.I. Joe and the tagline, America's Mobile Fighting Man. Hasbro, wanting to market to boys, but fearing that their products would be rejected and seen nothing more as dolls, promoted their line as action figures. This term has also gone on to become a generic description for any posable doll-like toy that has been aimed at boys. Many of today's action figures owe a bit of thanks to G.I. Joe and the bold path they carved back when. Eventually in 1982, with the relaunch of G.I. Joe, the 12-inch figures were shrunk down to 3-inch size. This was to piggyback on the idea of Kenner and their popular 3-inch Star Wars toy line. However, this was also a cost-saving measure, allowing Hasbro to create a much larger variety of characters, vehicles, and accessories. This line proved very popular, and to answer the call of nostalgia collectors, back in 1999, Hasbro released the 12-inch Hall of Fame G.I. Joe, which paid homage to the one that came out in the 60s. Alright, so here we have the 12-inch G.I. Joe Hall of Fame action figure of Duke. Now the reason why I have two of them is because one of them happened to be the Target exclusive that came out first, and the second edition one that came out later, more universal like at Toys R Us and other places. Now if you're wondering why they're differing in heights, the only reason because of that is because one of them happens to be on the stand that they came with. I couldn't find the stand for the second edition one. Now these guys didn't have too many major differences between them. Only in the face, the hands, and a little bit in the chest, which we'll go over right now. You can see here that the Target exclusive Duke's features seem a little bit more chiseled and rugged, especially compared to the second edition one. I mean, his face is good and all, but it just seems a little smooth for my taste. And the face kind of seems like it could blend into being just about anybody. Now these guys also had their own little bit of frizzy hair on the top, gave a nice little bit of feel and texture to it, and it was a great homage to the original ones that came out in the 60s. One of the other major differences between these guys was in the style of hands. The first edition one here was meant to harken back to the 60s a little bit more, with the style of Kung Fu grip, with one hand being able to hold the barrel and the other one able to hold the handle of the gun. However, this design was a little bit flawed, and they didn't actually quite grip the things as well or as tight. The hand, it could just easily slip out. Another odd thing was the first editions didn't have the trademark backwards thumb that helped G.I. Joe prevent against copywriting, and both thumbs here are actually pointing the right way. This was corrected in the later edition, where you can see that the G.I. Joes have a little bit more of that grasping grip, and the rubber was a lot harder. See that he holds it a lot better right here, and it's a little bit harder to pull out. The last of the major differences was just in his chest, which you could only see unless you took his shirt off. Alright, watch it, ladies. You can see here that the chest is really kind of underdefined and flat. That's because a standard Ken doll was actually used in the place of this. But Joe felt a little bit bad about this, so he did some crunches and bench presses, and the second edition one's chest was a lot more well defined and ripped. You can definitely see a lot more muscle tone in here. I don't really want to take off all of his accessories to show you, but from a little bit what you can see, you can definitely see that there's a lot more muscle definition in there. As far as accessories go, they were pretty much the same. Each one of them came with their own little hard plastic helmet. And it was only the first edition one that you could see here that actually had the fabric that wrapped around it. Other than that, they were all one solid color and just molded plastic. As far as the shirts go, they were fully removable and had a lot of nice little details. You can see that each one of the little pockets worked and could actually open up. It was kind of neat because later editions you can actually put grenades in there and stuff. And it's also nice to see that they have the G.I. Joe logo right on here, along with his name, Duke, and the title of U.S. Army. Let me get that right in there. It's a little bit hard because the backpack covers it up, which is the other feature. The backpack was a nice other feature too. This could actually, all the buckles and the buttons actually work. I don't really want to take them off right now because they're a real pain in the butt to actually get back in through those things. But you could store whatever you wanted within here. And just like I said, everything was nice and removable in case you wanted to switch it out for another outfit. Now I know that might seem weird, but that was the other appeal of these guys, is you had other battle accessories that could come with these guys, whether it be spy gear, Arctic gear, or heavy combat gear. I don't know. One of the other cool features that I thought these guys came with was an electronic gun that actually lit up and made sounds. Now the light's a little bit old, so it doesn't quite blink like it used to when I press the button here. However, this was one that still actually made some sound effects. Let's see if we could actually hear it. That's not so bad for such an old toy. Sadly, however, this design is a little bit flawed because it doesn't actually have a battery case that you can change. I don't know why they wanted to have everything enclosed to where and thinking that the batteries would last forever. Maybe they just thought that no one would care and be playing with this toy long after the batteries went dead. But as toy collectors go, you kind of want to be able to put new batteries in there and get those neat sound effects. They never actually continued on with the electronic guns. After this series, the guns were just more solid plastic and didn't light up or do anything else like that. So that was a little bit sad. It would have been nice if they actually made some more that you could change the batteries on. But he actually holds the gun pretty well in his hands, and it doesn't seem too oversized compared to what he is. Another neat feature about this gun is it actually had little clips right here to hold the knife, which gave it a bayonet feel. The knife could actually pop right off and fit into its little sheath right here on the side of his leg. That just held into place. Well, actually, it's a little bit loose, but I got to get it in here, but it's kind of at an on angle. And it actually fit in his hand really well, so once all of his bullets were gone, he could actually get into a nice knife fight and defend himself. He also came with a little mini handgun right here, which this one I'm a little bit iffy on. Because of the design of the hands, you can't really actually fit one of his fingers inside the trigger. Other later editions of this toy would actually give them with the actual trigger firing finger that can fit right in there, but for the first editions it was okay. Now he also had a little holster right here that you could put the gun into and it would just button right up. So those were some other nice features that he had too. Now his pants were also just like his shirt. You could take those off and put other new pants on him, and I'm not going to get into that. Stop your giggling. Last but not least are his boots, which are also equally removable. Now if you're wondering why he's covered in baby powder in here, it's because these boots were actually a real pain in the butt to get on after you got them off. And me and my cousin, this was actually one of my cousin's figures. That's why some things seem a little bit more worn than some of my standard figures. Anyways, back on topic. We found that if we put baby powder on here, it was a lot easier to slide these boots off or on and off like that. Otherwise, it was just so hard to get them back on. You just was like shoving, you felt like you were going to break your figure. Anyways, so with that, this has been a look at the G.I. Joe Hall of Fame action figure of Duke. I have a couple more on the line, so if you like this one, maybe we'll take a look at another one down the line.
Once again, thank you for watching. If you like what you've seen today, please feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment below in the comment section. Any advice for the show will be greatly appreciated. Who knows, something you suggest may appear on the show in the future.